Okay, in this video we'll talk about while loops. So in the last video we talked about for loops. Homework 8 was also focused on for loops. And now we'll talk about while loops. And while loops are different in the logic in which they are implemented, in that they allow the execution of a block of code until a certain condition is met. So unlike for loops, which you run them over a predetermined number of iterations. So if you remember last time we said um, for a for loop, for example, for I equals 1 to 10, you write your code, execute your commands, and then end. So this will run this block of code for 10 times between 1 and 10. So in a for loop, you're able to run your code for a predetermined number of times. However, in a while loop, um, you don't explicitly say the number of times the loop is going to run in, but you give it a condition. And once this condition is met, or once this condition is not met, you exit out of the loop. And a while loop can continue indefinitely as long as the condition is not met. And it's very useful when the number of iteration is unknown beforehand. So if you have a block of text and you're not sure how many times you want to run it, a while loop is probably the best choice to go for. And if you're writing an extensive code, a very long code with thousands of lines, bunch of pages, whatever, it's always better to try to choose the while loop whenever you can and minimize your for loops in your code. So in order to start a while loop, so let's start a new script here. So again, the while loop always starts with the command while. So we just write while. Again, your first letter has to be small, so small w here. And then after while you write your logical expression, right? Whatever this logical expression may be. We're gonna get to it in a second. And while this logical expression is true, you're gonna execute a bunch of commands. This is the body of your code, and and then you have your end. So logically, what you're doing is while this logical expression is true, you're going to run these 3 lines of code, and it will keep running these 3 lines of code until this logical expression becomes false. Once it's false, you exit and you move on with the rest of your code. So for example, let's write an example here. So let's say you always have to use basic general structure. So let's do an example 1. So let me write example 1, and in this example, you let's initialize a variable. Let's call it a equals 1, and what I want to do is I want to count, or I want a to get to 10 basically. So I'm gonna say while a is less than 10, a equals a plus 1, and then end. So what I want here is I want a to keep on adding until I reach 10. So while a is less than, let's put equal to 10. So while a is less than or equal to 10, I'm going to keep incrementing a until a gets to 10, right? And you have the option, so if I suppress it, you're not going to see the output. I'm going to unsuppress it so that you can see the output in the command window below here. So let me run the script. Again, it's a script. I'm going to save it. Let's call it while. Actually, maybe calling it while is not the best idea. Let's call it example 1 while. Right. And then I'm going to save it here. So now let's run this script. And then add to path, of course. And you can see here, you can see the logic here. So a is initially 1, as we defined it in our script. and then is a less than 10? No, so a becomes 2. Is a less than or equal to 10? No, it becomes 3. You keeps on adding 1 until I get to the final one is, and then a becomes 10. Then a is 10 here. Is a less than or equal to 10? Yes. It adds 1 more, a becomes 11. Then it ends basically. So is a less than or equal to 10? No. So it just exits. So basically this loop runs 10 times as long as a is incrementing until a becomes less than 10. And you can see here that there's a logical sort of misstep where so if you're writing this code such that a has to be equal to 10, you'll need to remove this equal, and then a will become 10, right? So if I remove this equal, and let's add CLC clear, and I run it, a will become 10. So if your objective is to reach a certain number, you have to be careful with the equals in your logical expression up there. And obviously, you can see that this is very similar to what you would do in a for loop. So this type of logic can also be implemented in a for loop. So I can say for I equals 1 to 10. So I can define a at the beginning, a equals 0. And then for I equals 1 to 10, a equals a plus 1, right? And this will achieve the same thing. So you can use a for loop to basically do the same or reach the same objective as can use a while loop, sorry, to reach the same objective as a for loop. However, structuring and logic will be different. So in what scenarios will a while loop be better or give you a better advantage? Let's create a scenario. Let's say, for example, you have a bank scenario, right? Let's write a comment here, bank scenario. And let's say you have a savings account with a 5% interest rate. So every say it's let's say it's an annual interest. Let's make it easy. So every year you get 5% interest on however much is saved in this account. And if let's say and every year you're going to deposit $5,000 into this account, right? And you want to find the number of years for your account to reach $1 million, right? To reach, right? So I have a scenario: you have a bank, you have a savings account, and the savings account gives you 5% annual interest, and every year you're adding $5,000 into this account. So how many years will it take you to get to $1 million? So this seems like an ideal scenario to use a for loop because you don't know how many times you want to run this calculation or how many times you want to run this loop. So a for loop would not work. So this is an ideal scenario to use a while loop. I said for earlier mistake. While loop. So let's start by initializing our variables. I'm going to say balance equals 5,000. So your starting balance in the account is 5,000. Starting balance and year is equal to 0. So you just open the account. So you open the bank account, you put in $5,000 and you left it there, and it's accumulating 5% interest. So I want to find the number of years for it to reach $1 million. So I'm going to say while my balance is less than or equal to 1 million, right? I'm going to calculate the balance. So I'll keep on calculating my balance until it gets to $1 million. So balance will equal to 5% interest, so it's equal to my original balance, right, plus 5%, which is 0.05 multiplied by balance, right? And this command here is adding 5% interest. And we also said that every year you're going to add an extra 5,000, so plus $5,000. And also, right, so logically what I'm doing here is I ran a while loop while my balance is less than $1 million. I'm calculating the balance in the account, so the balance in the account is equal to however much is already available, plus the 5% interest, plus the 5,000 I'm adding every year. And then I'm going to increment my year, so year, I'm going to increment the year here. Year is equal to year plus 1, right? And and then afterwards you're going to display balance and display year, right? So we have our logical expression. So while my balance is less than $1 million, I'm calculating the balance every year, and I'm also updating my year so that I know which year I'm in now in calculating this balance. So if I run this loop, you can see that there's something off here, because when I run it, I just got 5,000 and 0, so balance is 5,000 and the year is 0, so it actually did not run through the loop. So let's see why did it not do that. Um, let's see. Let's try and run it without these spaces, and here we go. So yeah, so just be careful with numbers. If you put commas, MATLAB will not recognize it. I think you can change this in the settings, but this was our error. That's why it did not run previously. So while balance is less than or equal to $1 million, balance is equal to balance plus 5% interest plus 5,000, and year is equal to year plus 1. And then basically, if you try and calculate it, you're gonna get that you're gonna get to $1 million after 48 years. Similarly, let's say you have the same problem and you have an account with an 8% annual interest. So I'm gonna increase my yearly interest to 8% by changing it to 0.08. You run it, you calculate it. So if you have an 8% interest account in 36 years, you're going to end up with $1 million in this account. So this type of application seems more suited for a while loop compared to a for loop, because you're not sure um, um, you're not sure when or you don't know the number of iterations required, and you just want this loop to run until your condition is met. And this is the strength of a while loop in these scenarios. Homework 9 will be posted. I'm going to also post the solutions for each of the problems. Go over them, try to understand them. If you're still struggling with a while loop, I'm having my office hours from 9 to 12 every Wednesday and Friday. Please come to the office hours, send me an email, try to get in touch with me, and I'll be available to help you out. Thank you.